Before we continue to our story, I want you to take a moment to subscribe. The 11th gate. Before your name, before your body, before the very first beat of your heart, there was you. Not the you with memories and stories, but the real you. Soft, expansive, vast like the sky and deeper than time. You were not a spark created out of nothing. You were an extension of everything. You didn't begin. You simply shifted, like a wave rising from the ocean. Still the ocean, still whole, yet moving toward experience. This story is not about religion. It's not about belief. It's about remembering. And whether you believe in souls or not, whether you feel something sacred stirring when you gaze at the stars, or you simply wonder why you've always felt a little out of place in this world, something in you knows. You've been here before. The truth is, your soul didn't just appear the moment you were born. It passed through stages, 7 hidden realms before it ever touched the cradle of flesh. Each stage shaped you. Each realm etched wisdom, fears, love, and longing into your being. And even now, as you sit here listening, that ancient journey hums beneath your skin. This isn't fiction. This is your story. Not the story you were told. Not the one the world gave you. The story your soul carried long before it had a name. In this video, we will walk together through the 7 stages your soul passed through before birth. We'll explore what you chose, what you forgot, and what still waits inside you just beneath the noise of everyday life. Some of it may feel familiar. Some of it might unlock memories you didn't know you had. And some of it may finally explain why you are the way you are, and why life feels like a journey you began long before this body ever breathed. So take a deep breath. Not just into your lungs, but into your soul. Let the world fall quiet for just a little while, because it's time to remember what you've always known. You were never just born, you arrived. And now let us return to the place where it all began. Long before form, before time, before thought, there was silence. Not the kind of silence that comes when the world grows still, but a deeper silence. A silence so vast, so complete that it held no sound because there was no other to hear it. This was the realm before individuality, the place before identity, the infinite, and in that infinite, you existed. Not as a someone, not even as a thing, but as essence. You were part of everything. You were not separate from the stars or the light or the breath that would one day fill your chest. You were the breath. You were the light. You were the stillness that held the stars in its cradle. In this first stage, there was no you and no me, no beginning and no end. It was unity, wholeness, source. It is said in many ancient traditions that the soul begins as a ripple within the divine, a gentle stirring in the heart of the eternal, a whisper of curiosity. What would it be like to become? But this was not desire in the way humans know desire. It wasn't hunger or need. It was more like gravity, a sacred pull toward experience. The way a flower leans toward sunlight without thought or effort. The way a river flows not because it chooses to, but because it is the flow. This stage is often forgotten, buried under lifetimes and noise. But it's not gone. Every now and then, it comes back to you, in dreams, in stillness, in those moments when the world feels thin and you sense something vast behind the veil of everyday life. That vastness is you, the real you. In this realm, there were no words, no fears, no past, just presence. But in that presence, something subtle began to shift. A tiny pulse, a rhythm, a movement within the stillness. It was as if the universe, in all its wholeness, longed to know itself more intimately, not by watching, but by becoming. Not by observing form, but by entering it. And so the infinite, unchanging, undivided, gently rippled. And from that ripple, your soul began to form, not as a departure from the source, but as an expression of it. You did not fall. You were not exiled. You emerged, still sacred, still connected, still whole. This is the first hidden stage, the echo of the infinite, where your soul, still cradled in the arms of eternity, begins to dream of what it might become. It is here that your journey truly begins, not with a bang, not with pain, but with a whisper, a soft, sacred yes, the yes that would carry you through dimensions, lifetimes, laughter, grief, and grace, a yes that still echoes in your heartbeat today. And so the silence stirs, and the soul leans forward, toward the next stage, toward form. From the stillness of the infinite came a stirring. From the whole came a whisper. I want to know myself, by becoming. This was not ego. There was no ego yet. This was the original longing, the first motion, not to leave the divine, but to express it, to taste what it meant to feel, to choose, to grow. And so your soul leaned outward, still tethered to source, still one with the great light, but beginning to take shape. Not a physical shape, not yet, but a subtle outline, like mist beginning to swirl into form. This is the second hidden stage, the pull toward form. In this realm, you were still light, but light with intention. You began to form the idea of a self, not as separation, but as a container for experience. The soul wanted to know, to feel joy, not just be it, to explore love, not just radiate it, to learn through contrast, not because pain was required, but because contrast deepens awareness. You were not cast down. You were drawn in. Just like a seed buried in the dark. Soil is not lost, but preparing to rise. You too were preparing. In this stage, your soul began to explore the different layers of existence, not with eyes, but with resonance. You scanned realms, felt energies, observed how light condensed into density, how vibration became structure. You watched the dance of time and form and choice from just outside the stage of incarnation, and then you felt something else, a gentle invitation, a path, one that curved inward, downward, deeper, toward embodiment. The universe did not push you. There was no force. There was simply a current, and your soul began to drift with it. And with each ripple, with each wave, you began to forget the silence a little, not in betrayal of it, but in trust. Trust that the memory would live on, hidden in your bones, in your dreams, in those quiet moments where the world fades and something ancient stirs. The pull toward form is not a punishment. It is a sacred invitation to take what is infinite and pour it into something finite, to take what is boundless and express it through breath, through movement, through story. And so, still glowing, still whole, your soul stepped closer to the edge. Not the edge of a fall, but the edge of becoming, a moment suspended between formless light and the first outline of destiny. The truth is, you did not choose to come here because you were broken. You came because you were curious, because something in you wanted to grow not just through knowing, but through living. And so the pull became a promise. A path took shape, and your soul leaned further in. Now that the pull had become a path and your soul had chosen to descend into form, a new stage began, one that required deeper thought, deeper intention. This was not just about entering a body. It was about crafting the journey before the first breath, not with maps or clocks, but with meaning. This is the third hidden stage, the gathering of lessons. Here your soul stood before a vast, luminous field. It was not a place in the way Earth is a place, but a realm of resonance. Every thread of karma, every unlearned truth, every ache and yearning from lifetimes past moved through this field like waves through a sea of starlight. And in that sea, your soul began to gather, not blindly, not as punishment, but as a sacred choice. You reviewed what had come before, not with judgment, but with understanding. Who you had been, what you had learned, what still echoed unresolved. You saw the patterns, the places where fear had closed you, the moments when love had broken through, and from this vision you began to select. Not people, not names, not yet. but lessons. You chose to experience compassion not as an idea, but as an action. You chose to learn forgiveness, not just for others, but for yourself. You chose to understand loss, not because the pain was needed, but because loss reveals what truly matters. You even chose some of your challenges, not to suffer, but to grow. To stretch your soul in ways only contrast could inspire. This is a truth often forgotten in the fog of birth. You chose far more than you remember. Not everything. There are always unknowns, always free will. But the blueprint was yours. You did not come empty. You came with a curriculum, etched into your soul like glowing lines of code, waiting to be activated by time, by choice, by experience. And around you, other souls were doing the same. Your soul family, your companions, your mirrors. You may not recognize them now, but before birth you danced with them. Some would arrive as lovers, some as parents, some as strangers who would pass through your life in a single moment, but leave a mark that changed everything. And others would play the role of challenge, the betrayer, the one who leaves. Not because they hate you, but because they loved you enough to play the part your soul requested. Because the deepest growth often hides inside the sharpest pain. This stage is not easy. Even in the higher realms it carries weight, because here the soul becomes accountable, not to guilt, but to its own growth. You didn't just choose a life, you chose a path within it, not carved in stone, but alive, ready to shift, evolve, respond to your every decision. And so the gathering continued, like an artist selecting colors before painting the sky, like a composer hearing the first notes of a song that hasn't been played yet. By the end, your soul held a luminous blueprint, one that only you could walk, only you could shape, only you could fulfill. And with that sacred design held close, you stepped forward into the next stage where the blueprint would meet other souls, and the real weaving would begin. With your soul's blueprint gently pulsing like starlight in your being, you arrived at a realm older than memory, yet deeply familiar. A place of communion, reflection, and sacred alliance. This is the fourth, hidden stage, the Council of Mirrors. Here you did not walk alone. Here you were met, not by strangers but by souls who have walked beside you across lifetimes. Some felt like family, others felt like fire. But all were reflections, mirrors held up to your becoming. This realm isn't one of judgment. There is no punishment here, only truth wrapped in love. The council is not a courtroom, it is a circle, a sacred gathering of wisdom keepers, guides, teachers, and fellow travelers, some more advanced, others learning alongside you. Together they help you remember who you are and why you came. You sat with them not as a student but as a collaborator, a sovereign soul ready to descend into matter, and they asked, not in words, but in resonance, are you ready? Not just ready to be born, but ready to forget, to feel the pain of separation, to lose your name, your light, your plan, and still choose love again. And in that quiet space you were shown possibilities. You saw the shimmering echoes of your future, the lives that might unfold based on your choices. You saw the joy, the fear, the challenges, the people who would cross your path. Some of those people were present even then in that circle. Souls you knew, souls you loved, souls who would test you and awaken you. You recognized the one who would hold your heart and the one who would break it. You recognized the child who would choose you, and the stranger whose one act of kindness would save your life. There was grief in this, yes, because you knew you would forget them, at least for a while. But there was also beauty, because even in forgetting, the connection never dies. These souls, your soul family, promise to walk with you. Not always beside you, but always in service to your evolution. Some would appear briefly, others would walk with you for decades, but all would hold a mirror, to show you who you are, to remind you of what you came to remember. This is why certain people feel instantly familiar, Why a glance from a stranger can stir something ancient. Why you can miss someone before you even meet them. The soul remembers what the mind cannot. And in this stage, the remembering is whole. Before you left this realm, your guides placed a final imprint in your heart, a kind of compass. It doesn't show up on maps or calendars, but it stirs in your chest when you're close to truth, when you're aligned with the path you chose. You may know it as intuition, a feeling, a knowing, but it's more than that. It's a signal from the Council of Mirrors still with you even now, and with that blessing your soul turned once more toward incarnation. But first, it needed a vessel, a body, a time, a place, and so began the next sacred stage. With the Council's blessing behind you and the soul's blueprint glowing like a constellation in your core, the time came to choose a vessel, a body, a timeline, a life in form. This is the fifth hidden stage, the blueprint and the body. Your soul didn't descend randomly. It wasn't thrown into a life by chance. It chose. You looked across generations, across lineages, across unfolding rivers of time, and you chose this one. Not because it would be easy, but because it would be fertile. You chose your body, with all its strengths and all its limitations. You chose your gender, your appearance, your voice, your heartbeat. You knew some days you would love this body, and other days you would struggle to feel at home in it. But you chose it with purpose, because it would carry the lessons you asked for. You chose your parents, not because they were perfect, but because their presence, or even their absence, would activate key parts of your soul's plan. You chose the town, or village, or city that would become your first theater of experience. You chose the environment that would shape your early view of the world. Some souls choose soft landings, gentle homes, safe hands, supportive beginnings. Others choose fire, chaos, hardship, even trauma. Not because they deserve it, not because pain is noble, but because within the pressure, something powerful can be born. There is no right or wrong choice in this realm. There is only resonance. And your soul in its wisdom knew what would awaken you. Once chosen, the blueprint becomes layered, not just a spiritual map, but a biological one. Your energy field begins to weave itself into the DNA of your future form. The heart begins to beat, long before it ever exists in flesh. The energy of your lungs, your hands, your spine, all of it begins to echo in the subtle planes, shaping the physical body to come. This is when the chakras begin to take form, not just as wheels of light, but as anchors of purpose, each one carrying echoes of what you've lived before, and what you're here to heal now. Every mark, every tendency, every instinct, none of it is accidental. Even your talents and your fears were chosen with intention, because what your soul seeks is not just survival, and it's awakening. And to awaken, you must live, fully, messily, honestly. And for that, you needed a body, you needed a stage, you needed earth. So as your blueprint crystallized and your energy began to reach toward form, you stood at the edge of the veil, still luminous, still infinite, but now carrying the weight and wonder of becoming human. And yet one final preparation remained, the most mysterious of all. To remember this path, you would have to first forget it. There is a moment in every soul's descent when everything pauses, not because the path is unclear, but because what comes next requires the greatest courage of all. This is the sixth hidden stage, the veil of forgetting. You had chosen your body. You had chosen your family, your place, your lessons. You had danced with your soul group, embraced your blueprint, and crafted your sacred curriculum. And then, you had to forget it all, not forever, but for long enough to make your awakening real. This forgetting wasn't a punishment. It wasn't meant to blind you or confuse you. It was part of the sacred design, an act of trust so profound it echoes in every moment of your human life. Because what is the value of remembrance if you never forgot? What is the power of rediscovering who you are if you never wandered from it? The veil of forgetting is not like sleep. It is more like a fog, thick and soft, wrapping around the soul as it prepares to cross the threshold into form. You begin to lose sight of the council. You stop hearing the music of the higher realms. You let go of the blueprint's glow. You begin to forget the eternity behind you, so that you can fully live the moment in front of you. And with that forgetting comes a kind of sacred amnesia. You forget the contracts. You forget the pain you've already mastered. You forget the love that surrounds you in every dimension. You even forget your own light. And this too is sacred. Because in that forgetting, you become real. Your struggles become real. Your choices carry weight. Your compassion becomes earned, not given. Your strength is forged in fire, not theory. Some souls hesitate here. Some pause at the edge, feeling the weight of what's to come. Because once you pass through the veil, the story begins again. The pain will feel real. The doubts will feel heavy. You will look at the world and wonder why things are the way they are. You may question your worth. You may feel lost, but you're not, because hidden in that veil is a spark, a tiny, indestructible ember of memory, a piece of the infinite you couldn't forget, no matter how deep the fog. It flickers in your chest when you gaze at the stars. It stirs when you hear certain music. It whispers when you're alone and the world finally grows quiet. That spark is the proof, the reminder, the doorway back. And though the veil is thick, it is not permanent. One day a moment will come, maybe soft, maybe thunderous, when the memory returns. Not all at once, but in pulses. And you'll remember, you are not your name. You are not your wounds. You are not your roles or regrets. You are the soul who chose them. And so with trust, with grace, and with a love deeper than form, you let go. You surrendered to the forgetting. And then you began to descend. And then you fell. Not like a stone, not like something broken, but like a drop of light sliding down the spine of the cosmos, with purpose, with precision, with grace. This is the seventh and final hidden stage, the descent into birth. You cross the veil, wrapped in silence. You move through layers of light like veils upon veils, each one softening your memory, each one pulling you deeper into the dream. And still, you were held by the source, by your guides, by the unbreakable thread of your own becoming. Your soul, once vast and formless, began to enter time. Moments began to matter. Form began to wrap around you like a cocoon. The spiritual blueprint became cellular instructions. The ethereal body folded itself into flesh. Your heartbeat, once an echo, in the astral now pulsed inside a womb. You began to sense sound, to feel vibration, to swim in warmth and pulse and rhythm. And with each passing week your soul stepped further into form. Not all at once. No, the descent is careful. Too much too fast would shatter the vessel. But gently, lovingly, your light poured into this tiny body. Your hands, not yet formed, already remembered touch. Your eyes, still closed, already remembered stars. In this stage, you were closer to both worlds than you've ever been since, one part of you still shining in the heavens, another already stirring beneath a mother's heartbeat. This moment, between realms, is a mystery few remember. But your soul never forgot. There was fear, the weight of gravity, the compression of infinite light into finite skin. But there was also wonder, a sacred curiosity, a knowing that this journey was worth it. And so, when the time came, you moved. A final wave surged through the veil. The blueprint locked into form. The light settled into the body, and breath, glorious, messy, mortal breath, rushed into your lungs for the first time. You cried, not from confusion, but from the sacred impact of existence, from the weight of remembering and forgetting colliding in one single instant. You were born, but you were never truly new. You were ancient, wrapped in skin. You were eternity. folded into time. You were the soul who had traveled through 7 stages, who had chosen with care, with courage, with love. And now here you were, blinking at the world, held in arms that may or may not have understood your depth, but loved you just the same. And beneath it all, deep in your chest, the ember glowed, waiting, whispering, calling you one day to remember. You are not just a body. You are the dreamer who stepped inside the dream. And your story has only just begun. Now you know you were never just born. You arrived. Through light and silence. Through choices and counsels. Through lessons and forgetting. You shaped your journey before the very first breath filled your lungs. You are not an accident. You are not lost. You are not behind. You are exactly where your soul meant to be. The world will try to name you. It will try to define you by your wounds, your roles, your past. But beneath all of that, there is a light no one can touch. A memory that cannot be erased. The spark. The one you carried through all 7 stages. The one buried beneath the veil. Waiting for the day you would remember, not just with your mind, but with your life. When you feel that ache in your chest for something you can't name. That is the spark. When a moment of stillness moves you to tears. That is the spark. When you know things you've never been taught. That, too, is the spark. You are not just here to survive. You are here to awaken, to bring your blueprint to life. To walk your path with courage even when the way is hidden. And when it gets hard, when it feels like too much, remember this. You chose this, not as punishment, as purpose. So live, cry, laugh, break, heal, love like your soul remembers. How? Because it does. You have walked through stars to get here. You have danced with light and shadow. You have sat with angels and met with mirrors, and now you are here. The soul in the skin, the divine in the dirt, the eternal made real. And somewhere deep inside, that spark still whispers, don't forget who you are.